Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 80 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is improvement. Our quote of the day comes to us from David Wright. I'm always looking to improve, and every year I want to do better than the year before. It is my pleasure to bring you today's episode. I've known today's guest since 2003, and in addition to being one of the hardest working guys I know, he is a great father, husband, coach, and person. As a Division III NCAA college basketball coach, he is always on the go and always looking to improve himself, his staff, as well as his team. I'm honored that we got the chance to sit down for today's interview. It is my complete pleasure and privilege to introduce my good friend, Tim Sweeney. Tim, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Great to be here, Chris.
First question I ask everybody is, are you ready to make it happen today?
Absolutely. I'm fired up, ready to go.
Awesome. I just finished watching practice with Tim here at Hobart, and it's been a really fun experience, fun 2 days. So, Tim, as you know, the number one objective of our podcast is to both motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. So I was curious if you had either a story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and didn't quit.
Certainly, Chris. I think overall the career trajectory for me in the basketball world is one of kind of perseverance and sticking with it. As a younger player, particularly in high school, I wouldn't call myself the best player on the team, much less the best player in my area. And I think I had a dream to play Division I basketball, and it was a passion. It was something that was really important to me, and I spent a lot of time, working on my game and truly was committed. And absolutely tried to maximize my opportunities. I went to prep school, did a postgraduate year, so really went after the scholarship, and in the end came up short. Did not receive any offers, and being very candid, reluctantly went to the University of Rochester, which is a Division III program, so I could continue my career. And I think once getting there, realized what a great opportunity playing Division III basketball was. Kept on fighting, kept on competing there. Again, wasn't the best player on the team, but just enjoyed it so much. And I would say the culmination of that entire process was I was very fortunate to play on a Division III Final Four team my junior year in college, and just had an amazing experience as a basketball player, at the Division III level. And I'd say my coaching career has followed a similar path. Was very eager to get into coaching following my playing career. I'd say I interviewed for about 7 different opportunities at the Division I level and did not get an opportunity to get the job. Finally was fortunate to land at Davidson College, and with some very good timing in terms of getting there the same year as Stephen Curry. And, from there, my career really took off. So, I think, again, in a general sense, just the idea of loving something, staying with it, dealing with some temporary setbacks, but just continuing to move forward and truly doing it for the love of it.
No, I appreciate you sharing that story, and I think it's talks a lot about not only your character but also your perseverance. And you had a much better Division III career than I did, and I think you're top 10 in many categories of your school. But you kept going, and that's the best part about it is you did not get your D1 scholarship, but you did have a great Division III career. And as you said, a Final Four appearance in the NCAA tournament is something that most people never even dream about or have an opportunity. So I think it definitely talks about what you've done in your career, and obviously now you've transferred it over to your coaching career. I wanted to ask maybe a personal question, but I know that your wife was going through some health issues, and I know you guys have a new son, 11 months old. Is the challenge of life of being a college head coach, and you deal with issues with a wife and having a newborn child. How did you stay focused during all that and dedicated to your team?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. And I think there's a notion out there that people have these grand plans and these they're wonderfully prepared and ready for these situations. But quite frankly, whether it's a health issue or, a beautiful thing in terms of growing your family, it's one of those situations where you don't know until you're in the middle of the situation. And I think, one of the biggest takeaways from just dealing with some of that stuff is that you find the energy and you find the focus when you need it. And I think a lot of that comes from just being organized, being prepared in your daily life before that. So what I mean by that, Chris, is just having an idea of who you are, what your main goals are, and having that aligned as an individual allows you to go into those situations and continue to press forward and to continue to do your job and do things that are necessary, but also find that energy to be a supportive husband and to be a father and to do those things. I think it's incredibly important to just be very certain and sure of who you are and what you want in a bigger sense. And I think certainly those were challenging times, but another thing I'd be remiss not to mention is being in the right place, in the right community, having the right connections. And certainly here at Hobart College, where I'm lucky to be the head coach now, we had an amazing support network of my athletic director, fellow coaches, people in the community, family. So you're really, while we talk a lot about, that individual accountability and having yourself together, you're truly in these very tough situations also very helped by others. And I think that's a really important thing that's really, resonated with me, Chris, is because, going forward and coming out of those situations, I realize how important it is for me to be available to others in those same situations.
No, and I appreciate you sharing your honest opinion about that situation. And, having spent the last 2 days working with you and your program and watching practices, one of the things that stood out for me is in your office, you have a bookshelf full of a lot of books that I've read myself. And one of the things we talk about on every single episode is personal development. And a lot of our listeners are interested in developing and improving different areas of their lives, not just sales or business, family, relationship, just in general. And I was curious if you've read something recently or if you have a favorite book or something that stood out that you read that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, I think we're kindred spirits in some sense, Chris, right? With a love of reading and a love of covering a lot of ground with those books. To get specific, I'd have to say, as of late, really done a lot of reading, as you know, as a coach, getting ready for the season. I think a great book that I would recommend to our listeners out there is Black Box Thinking. And I'm blanking on the author right now, so you have to forgive me. But it's really a book about failure and making mistakes, and how they use the analogy in the airline industry of airplanes are equipped with that black box, and what that black box allows those in the airline industry to do is to pinpoint the mistakes and where they happened and why they happened. And I think, and really the crux of the book is they compare that industry to, perhaps the medical profession, other areas where mistakes can be swept under the rug or they're not as accepted. And I think in coaching and in life, I think, being able to find those mistakes and pinpoint them are just super important, whether it's a team that I'm coaching or any of us individually trying to get better. To carry that over, I'd share another great author out there right now, and I have not read the book, but Ray Dalio is terrific, and just reading. I have not read Principles, which is his new book, but he has a great saying, and I'll share this with your listeners, and it's pain plus reflection equals progress. And I think it's just really important to be able to embrace mistakes, look them in the eye, and improve from them. And I think that's something, whether you're on a team or coaching like I am, or just trying to be a better father or brother or whatever, I think it's a great lesson in terms of being able to look that square in the eye.
If you don't mind saying that again, pain plus reflection equals?
Pain plus reflection equals progress.
It's a great quote, and I literally just picked up that book last week. It's quite a book, but the people that make recommendations before on the front cover, inside the back cover, it's who's who of people, all different walks of life. And Ray himself has been unbelievably successful in the hedge fund world. But it's amazing because one of the things he talked about early in the book is he's at the point in his career now where he's made the money, he's been successful, and he wants to help others be successful. So I think that's really interesting as far as that aspect of it. Knowing that the season is right around the corner and you guys obviously have some goals and objectives, I was curious, how do you balance everything? So for our listeners out there that say, well, it's hard to do this and I can't do that, what would be your advice to our listeners of being able to balance a newborn and a wife and a college basketball coaching career?
Great question. This will sound very cliche, maybe a little hokey, but be where your feet are. And I'm fortunate to work for a wonderful athletic director here at Hobart, Mike Hanna, who is retiring this December, but has been at Hobart for 37 years as the boss here. And that's something that he shares with our staff all the time, is be where your feet are. And in other words, whenever I'm a dad, I'm a dad. When I'm a coach, I'm a coach. And that's very easy to say. It's very hard to do. And I think having, again, I go back to this, having an idea of ultimately what you want and who you want to be about, right? Having an organization system for your day, knowing where and when you want to commit your time and resources, and having an idea. And I'll be very candid, I'm not a super organized, whether it's BlackBerry or iPhone, it's not an elaborate system, but it's a system that works for me, and it's a system that I know where I want to spend my chunks of time and when and where. And I think something as simple as that has really helped me try to be the best. And again, you're never the best. I think that's part of the fun of the journey, is that if you're grading yourself every day, you're never going to get an A+, at least not in my world or your world. And I think that's important too. But having that system and just being where your feet are and understanding that when you're in those moments, devoting as much energy as you possibly can, right? I mean, we're not perfect people, so I might be 95% there as a dad, but that's better than 80%, better than 60%. So that's my focus, Chris, in terms of trying to just balance, like you said, all those different commitments.
No, that's some good advice, and I think it means a lot, and I appreciate you recommending some of those books. I had not heard of Black Box Thinking, so I'll have to check it out myself. One of the things we do in every episode is we utilize a daily quote, and I was curious if you have a favorite quote yourself.
Well, I'm in my coaching mode right now, Chris, so I'm going to go with, and it's a paraphrase, so you have to really apologize because I'm going to butcher this, but one of the wonderful things about being a coach and being a leader of a team is John Wooden has a great expression. It's a wonderful thing when no one's concerned with who gets the credit. And my mind went there. As you mentioned in the beginning, we're coming off our second straight day of practice, and I'm very fortunate to coach a great group of young men who are really connected. They're very close. They're wonderful kids with great families and backgrounds, and it's a neat experience to be a part of this as a coach. And I think so that's where I go. The John Wooden. It's amazing what you can accomplish when no one's concerned with who gets the credit.
That is a great quote, and I have to say, watching and working with your program the last 2 days has been refreshing in many ways, because you do have a great group of guys, and I want to say that with an asterisk before and after, because by great group of guys, I mean not only are they great athletes and great basketball players, you're very lucky and fortunate in that way, and that's obviously a testament of you and your staff and recruiting. But more importantly, I think they're even better kids off the court, and I got a chance to spend some one-on-one time with everybody on your team, including your staff, and I just think you guys have done a good job, and it's, again, a testament to finding the right kids. But also, as you mentioned, is you are a leader, and as a head coach, as an assistant coach, even if someone's director of basketball operations for a program, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, you have that opportunity to lead somebody. And one of the guests a couple episodes ago was Mark Sanborn, and he wrote a book titled "You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader," and I think that's a great quote, and it's a great concept that most people don't realize. And I think in the college basketball world, and even any coaching collegiate sport, is people can be leaders on and off the court, on and off the field. And it might not be the best player. It might be someone who's on the second or third team. But the importance is you lead, and you can lead in different ways. So I'm glad I got the opportunity to spend some time with you and your staff and your players, because I think you guys are a special group of kids, and I'm excited for what's going to happen this year and moving on. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, if you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
One piece of advice. I'll give you one A and one B. Breathe. Breathe. I think for for me personally, when I was younger and in my early 20s, I had one speed, and it was 100 miles per hour. And that goes in all facets of life. And I think just the concept of breathing, taking a breath, slowing down from time to time, changing speeds, right? We can laugh about it, but we tell our basketball players all the time, key element of the game is changing speeds, having deception, not going one speed. And I think when you're young and reflecting back to when I was young, you're going 100 miles per hour. So just having that perspective. Along with that, and we've chatted about this, I wish I would read more, would have read more, and really, and not just read more, but I think really internalized what I was reading. I think now, being older and hopefully a little bit wiser, what I read has a much more profound impact on me, and I'm able to internalize it. And right, it's like for most of us, we read things and we take some things away and not others, and everyone reads things differently. But being able to read something different, internalize it, take from it what I can, learn, and then move on. And I think those would be the 1A and 1B for what I would do different.
I think that's great. That's great advice. And I think that in the reality of the situation is that there are so amazing things that people can read and people can do. And to your point, we have spoken about it, is my father always told me when I was younger in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, he said, read, 5-10 minutes a night. It'll be good for SATs and PSATs and for high school and college. And I was always no, because it was my father telling me. And now, lo and behold, I read 99 books last year. And I don't say that because I want a pat on the back, but it's very ironic how something my father always preached to me, and he preached it from nothing but the best place, not only academically, but mentally, personal development. And it's funny how, as you mentioned, hopefully, as you're older, you're a little bit smarter in different things. I'd like to think that I'm smarter and wiser in different ways, but it's important that not only do you read things, but you also expose yourself to things. And that's one of the things that I was impressed with you and your staff, is just the way you have that relationship with your players, and you're looking to talk to them about different things, not just basketball, what else is going on in their life. So I think that's a testament, again, to you and your staff as well. Here's a different question for you, is if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Wow. Usually you get a choice. Usually you get 3 guys at the table, and you can pick one and go to the other. So this is an awesome question. This is going to sound really strange, and I hope the listeners can bear with me, but I honestly would have to say, and maybe because I spent a lot of my childhood watching tapes of him and idolizing him, and I didn't grow up in a sports family, Chris, so a lot of my basketball background is sort of self-initiated. I sort of a self-proclaimed self-starter, and but it would be Pistol Pete Maravich. And again, I know that'll be strange to many people listening, but he was just this transcendent basketball player in the 70s who really, him and his father, through his father's teachings, changed the game and made basketball a little bit more joyous, a little bit more fun. And so again, a little bit bizarre, but I would say Pistol Pete, and I would just be fascinated. He was a childhood hero, and I would love to just spend some time with him. Unfortunately, he passed away, I think, in 1988 from a heart attack. But that's my guy.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that. Is my father is a big basketball guy, as well as myself and my brother, and having coached collegiately, high school, and the AAU level, I'm a big believer in learning from people that were before you, and I was a huge fan of Pistol Pete. And most people don't know this, but Pistol Pete had a fallout from basketball near the end of his career, and he actually found basketball again later on in life, and he actually died playing basketball on the court. He was playing a pickup basketball game actually at a church, and it's just an amazing story about people finding themselves later on in life. But I think that dinner would be remarkable, because Pistol Pete was one of the greatest players of all time, and many people say that him playing in the 70s and 80s, he was so far ahead of his time with what he could do, and his father, Press, obviously had a huge impact on that. So I'm if you can set that dinner up some way, please let me know. I'd like to be just a fly on the wall, and I promise won't say anything, but definitely take in a lot of notes and take a lot of information in. So I wanted to ask you, Tim, if there's anything exciting that you're looking forward to this season specifically, or is it just another opportunity for you to get after it?
Well, we made reference to the young men in our program earlier that you've had a chance to get to know the last 2 days, and I think For me, this season is very exciting because we have a lot of experience returning. And one of the things about our specific year last year was we had some disappointment. We were inconsistent. We had some great moments, some not so great moments. We lost in our conference's championship game, which was the game to go to the NCAA tournament, which is every kid's dream. And we came up just short. And I think it's really galvanized this group of young men to work really hard over the summer and come back. So from a basketball standpoint, really excited to approach the season and see what we can do. And our guys understand that, all the hard work in the world guarantees us nothing. But we believe that doing things the right way will give us an opportunity to have success, and that's all we can ever ask for. On a larger sense, Chris, I think I'm just excited to keep learning, and the opportunity to have you working with us here with No Quit Living and working with our team and the feedback and sort of the relationships that guys are developing and talking with you and having to consider these things, I just think is such a benefit for our program and for our kids. And I would just share with you that I'm probably most excited about just keep getting better. I think this is a year and an opportunity where this team can take a step forward, and hopefully as their coach, I can take a step forward and just continuing to get better. And one thing we talk about all the time with our kids, and I'll share with the listeners, is that what we're really striving for is that blend of confidence and humility. We refer to that a lot. The confidence, earning the right to win and being ready, but also that humility and knowing that. And I feel this as a coach. Every year, every month that goes by, it's amazing how much there is to know about the game and life, and how much you really don't know. So just having that perspective and being hungry to learn more. So that blend of confidence and humility. I hope it's a great year for us. Approaching both those things, with the right spirit.
I think it's an exciting year, and not to touch on it again, but definitely have a good group of kids, and I'm excited to see how it goes. So wanted to ask you before we let you go, Tim, if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Not really. I think we've covered a lot of ground. Really appreciate you, Chris, and I think what you're doing, again, not to overemphasize it, but I just love the concept. I love the idea of the self-accountability, and I thought your message to our kids this morning was fantastic. And really, I'd go back to what I just mentioned. I think in doing and growing as a leader, I feel like I have a lot to learn, and might be in still the embryonic stages of being a great head coach and father and husband, but just being humble enough to want to keep learning and understanding that. I'll go back to my book recommendation, black box thinking. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's amazing how whether it's Ray Dalio or anyone you read as of late, so many people refer to the idea that you're going to mess up and things are not going to go right. And I think that's such a hard concept for us as adults, but in my profession, for 18 to 22-year-old kids who are becoming men, that is such a difficult concept to grasp. Is that I'm going to need to risk and fail and look bad, heaven forbid, to move forward. And it's easy to coach that and talk about that. It's hard to live it. So as leaders and as adults, for us, it's difficult enough. And then, so one of the great joys and challenges as a coach is trying to instill that in again, 18 to 22-year-old, emerging young men. And I think, that's what energizes me. And I think, that would be the parting shot to leave with everybody.
No, that is some great advice. And when I asked you, do you have any parting words, you said not really. Then you shared probably 4 or 5 really, really good things. And I think that just talks about you and the character you are, not only as a coach, but as a father and as a husband. And you said something that's interesting that I just want to touch on and leave the listeners with is, to succeed in life, you have to be able and be willing to risk. And you have to be able to be willing to put yourself out there and fail. And you touched on something that's very difficult for a lot of people to understand is we're in our 30s and we've been through lots of things in life and lots of obstacles. But when you're an 18 to 20-year-old college student and college athlete, it's very difficult to be willing to put yourself out there, especially on a basketball court when your classmates, those in your class, both above and below you, are watching you and you're in essence on a pedestal. So I think it's just great that you want to humble yourself to keep learning. I think that's the difference of a good coach versus a great coach, and the difference of a coach that's unstoppable when it comes to leadership, inspiration, motivation, and being that person for that team. So last question, Tim, and I promise it's the easiest one, is if our listeners are interested in connecting with you or following your team, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. First for our team, our website, www.hwsathletics.com, Chris, is the best way to follow the Hobart Statesman online. Again, it's www.hwsathletics.com. You can follow the link to our basketball page, and lots of great content there, information. You can get a lot of information on our team. I'm on Twitter. I can't promise any great revelations, but it's at Coach Tim Sweeney. Very easy to remember. At Coach Tim Sweeney is the Twitter hashtag. I'm still getting up to speed on a lot of that stuff. Unfortunately, not on Instagram or Snapchat yet, but my kids are constantly telling me to catch up. So, but those would be the best ways. And then, if anybody wants to reach out directly, the email is the easiest way. It's just my last name, Sweeney, SWEENEY, @hws.edu. And those would be the main ways to reach out. And, really had a lot of fun doing this, Chris. I'm honored to be on. There's a lot of people that have accomplished a lot more than I have on this podcast, but I'm humbled and honored to share some time with you and appreciate everything you're doing, and excited to listen to everyone else who will come on this after me.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. I can't thank you enough for not only the opportunity for the last couple of days, but also being on the show, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, improvement, that is something Tim is always looking to do. Coaching college basketball is a very difficult task, where unfortunately wins and losses come first. One thing I personally took from today's interview was how Tim is always looking to better himself personally, professionally, for his family, and his team. Tim spoke about 2 books, Black Box Thinking and Principles. He shared something from Ray Dalio's new book, Principles, that I thought was very interesting and thought-provoking. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Tim spoke about the fact that as a head coach, he is a leader, and as a leader, he is always looking to improve both on and off the court. As he is coaching 18 to 20-year-old men who are college student athletes, it's a very humbling job, and sometimes all you can do is control your hard work and your effort. He discussed how coaching is a very humbling job and how you're going to mess up and make mistakes, but you need to be willing to take those risks to accomplish your goals. The question I would like to pose to our listeners today is this: are you willing to take risks, and are you willing to fail in exchange for your ultimate success? I challenge you today to put yourself out there, take a calculated risk, and go for your greatness.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.